Welcome to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast, where every week, Kirsten and Jeanne dive into the essential topics to fuel your business growth. From copywriting to course creation, mindset to video marketing, they've got you covered. Tune in for expert guest interviews on all things marketing and business, and learn how to work on your business, not just in it. So, get ready to unlock your business potential and take it to the next level.
Welcome, everyone, to our newest episode. We are thrilled that you are here, and we are also thrilled to have Nina Froriep here with us today from Clockwise Productions. Nina is amazing. She's an award-winning producer and documentary filmmaker. She's seen it all from the early days of independent features to big national TV commercials, corporate mega shows, Emmy-winning documentaries. She's also produced and directed a show called Abraham's Children. But today she is a LinkedIn content creator and video marketer, and we're excited to have her. She also enables authors, business coaches, and service-based entrepreneurs to create easy and impactful video marketing so they can attract their ideal clients and be disruptors in their field of expertise. So, Nina, we are so excited to have you back. Thank you for being here.
Of course, I'm thrilled to be asked back.
I'm excited about our conversation today. LinkedIn generation. I feel like LinkedIn is such a powerful tool, especially for small business owners. So I would love for you to elaborate on that for us as far as how do you feel like small business owners can really take advantage of LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think for me, LinkedIn, I always say it's like a game leveler. It allows a small business a seat at the table and play with the big boys, and sometimes even have, or girls, and even have, but also even have an advantage over the big girls and boys, because it just allows you, if you hold true to a couple of principles around being on LinkedIn, it really allows you to be seen, heard, and to organically grow. Because the one thing that sets LinkedIn apart from all the other social media platforms is that it doesn't have that overwhelming onslaught of everything, video, everything, visual, everything. It's still a fairly tempted to say linear platform just because of its layout, but it allows it for somebody who posts consistently, and especially also dials into video and into lives, to really stand out and organically, without salesy marketing tactics, without what I call bro marketing, to really be able to engage an audience that you want to be engaging with and get them into conversation and potentially into your client roster.
I love that. So that it's all about getting found on LinkedIn and for LinkedIn to be pushing kind of your content out in front of people.
Both of those things, yeah. Statistic wise, the numbers are in your favor. Of the billions of people who are on LinkedIn, there is only 10% who are posting. And of those, and actually, no, that's not even true, 10% who are engaging or doing something on LinkedIn other than just passively consuming. And then of that 10%, it's again a marginal number who actually does the posting. So if you post regularly, the LinkedIn algorithm will automatically pick you up and serve you up to more people. And then there is tons and tons of statistics, and there's people who are actually putting out reports regularly, and they're very good at it. And one of them is Richard van der Bloem, and a Dutch guy. And when the algorithm also breaks it down into what kind of posts are you posting? Is it just a written post? Is a written post with an image? What kind of image? Is it stock image or an image that you took? Big difference there, right? Are you doing video? If you're doing video, you're like 1% posting people, or of the people on LinkedIn, and 10% of the people who are posting. If you're doing lives, the algorithm loves you even more. There is a mathematical and statistical side of LinkedIn, which I know about just because I feel I should, because I help people with their LinkedIn. But really what I love about it is that it is to me, it's very organic, and it's a very lovely way to start conversation with people who I think might be interested in what I have to offer. And that, to me, that organicness about it, of me posting valuable content. Valuable means something that my audience is either useful for them, they can recognize themselves in, let's say, a client story, or in a story that my background story, how I got to being where I am. All those things, if they can connect to it and will comment or like on my posts, I know who they are. I post so people will engage. That is my So yes, it's nice to have 9,000 followers, and it's nice to have 8,800 connections, and it's nice to have 2,000 views on a piece. But those to me are what I call vanity metrics, because they don't lead to a connection. And without a human connection, there is no eventual sale. So the metrics that I pay attention to are who's commenting and who's liking my stuff, because those are the people where I know who they are. I can look them up. I can engage them and say, thank you, Jeannie, for commenting on my post yesterday. What was the most useful thing for you? Or what did you think? What made you engage? It allows me to start a conversation with you. And it's the kind of conversation I would be having if I met somebody at a networking event, right? It's not the conversation of, hey, thanks for liking my shit and connect with me. And by the way, I have these 3 things I want to sell you, right? You wouldn't do that when you met a person at a party either, right? There's that phase of small talk. But with LinkedIn and with being able to bubble up and be served to more people, into more people's feed, because you're consistently posting, that allows me to even get started with having those kinds of conversations.
I love that. I love that. So when you've already touched on so many great things, but let's talk about what kind of metrics do you look at to see how your content is doing? You mentioned that you look at likes and comments. Is there anything else?
Not really, because those are the 2 that are, I look at likes and comments. And then when I have new clients, I have a spreadsheet, and there's always like the column that I look at the most is where did they come from? Are they an introduction? Are they a referral? Or are they, sometimes I write down long-time stalker or a long-time follower is a nicer way of saying it. So I really make sure that I understand how people find me. And the referral, my LinkedIn profile is equally as important for the referral as it is for the person who's been like watching my content for a long time and never pulled the trigger. Because those people are hugely valuable because for them, the timing might be off, or they're just starting their business and they're just not quite ready yet to have the presence and the breadth to say, okay, I think I can make a commitment to posting at least once or twice or 3 times a week consistently. And they know that I talk about that all the time. That's like the biggest thing that I try to drive home. Even if you only do written posts with an image, it's fine as long as you do it consistently, right?
So Nina, tell us a little bit more about the spreadsheet. Is this a spreadsheet that you created for yourself where you track everyone that has interaction with you, or is it something that's through Sales Navigator? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Oh yeah, so I'm as former producer, I'm also an artist, but spreadsheets make me insanely happy, and the more complex, the better. Yeah, I have this multi-tab spreadsheet. It's actually a Google Sheet, so I can share it with my business partner. And yeah, I track year by year, not just my clients as they come in and how they found me. I also then at the end of the year make a percentage. 30% were referrals, 10% were me reaching out actively to them, and then another, whatever's left now, 60% are people who came cold to me through inbound marketing on LinkedIn.
Love that.
We don't do we've dabbled with Google ads and LinkedIn ads even, and Facebook ads, and I always pulled the plug very quickly. First of all, I didn't feel that at our size company we had the resources to do it. I think that you need to be a little bit bigger for that, and we just never saw 0 results, pretty much 0 on all of those efforts. So we're like, not worth it.
The next thing we're going to talk about is the profile, because I guess that's where you have to start, is making sure you have a profile that's going to attract your ideal client.
Yeah. And I play with that a lot. I actually just changed mine yesterday. So I think it also depends a little bit on what your focus is. But if you're clear on who your audience is, and which you should be, obviously, if you're in business, create a profile that you think speaks to them and where they can recognize themselves. If I look at video marketing, there's a lot of what I call kids out there. And there's a lot, if I happen upon a profile that is all, I don't know, candy colored, and there's somebody in a bikini and 20 years old and they look like they're 16 and they're selling like video marketing, I'm not going to be attracted to that, because that's not who I am, and that's not who my audience is. If you're going to talk about helping people find their joy in their marketing, you better have something joyful on your profile. But just in terms of the mechanics of the profile, you want to make sure you have a good photo where you smile and you're looking at people. And Best non-distracting background. I actually made mine black and white, and I'm going to see how that flies, what kind of feedback I get, and have a background. You don't want to have a banner. You don't want to have the standard LinkedIn, the gray blue thingamajig that they put out if you don't have any. And the banner can be a single color and some text like your mission statement or who you serve, or it can be very simple, but have a banner. And then in general, just fill out look at the profile as if it were your website. It's for years and years, my partner and I have said social selling first, social selling first. And then at the end of last year, they were like, 2024 is going to be selling first year. And we're like, hold yes, so. So really, people go to your profile first and foremost. And some people never even make it to your website. So you want to make sure that your profile is professional, it's clean. You take advantage of the like you have 220 characters. I just happen to know because I did it yesterday to introduce yourself. So make sure you use that real estate to introduce yourself under your name. And then the about section is not about you, it's about your clients, how you serve them. So that's really important. And then make sure you have some recommendations, you give some recommendations. I always tell, especially small business owners, create a business page for your business and put the logo in, even if you do nothing with it, because that allows you, when you put down the experience part, where you list yourself as the owner of or the founder of, there's again not that dreaded gray blue thing from LinkedIn, but there's an actual logo of your company. So that's small little things like that. It just makes you immediately look 10 times or 100 times more professional. And you don't have to do anything with your business page, but have it so you can link to it.
Do you recommend, I know it's a little bit off topic, but do you recommend using Sales Navigator?
I did for a long time. I felt that the effort I put into using Sales Navigator and inviting people at the level I was allowed to invite people, like how many ever it was per week. Yes, so I would say yes, if you have, first of all, absolutely yes, if you have less than 500 people in your ecosystem, right? Because when people look you up, it'll say 500 plus connections, or it'll say 52 connections. So if you're at 52 or at 472, yes, get Sales Navigator and actively connect with people and ask them to connect with you. I find for me, whether it would be nice to have 10,000 followers, I'm somewhere around 9,200 something, but it wasn't worth the paying the money for Sales Navigator and paying a virtual assistant to do that consistent sort of very rote and mechanical work, which was about a couple of hours a week. So it wasn't nothing. And at some point, I'm just, you know what, I think when I was like at 7,000 or 8,000 followers, I'm like, you know what, this is not worth it anymore. So I stopped Sales Navigator, but I kept premium, I think it's called, where I can still see who looks at my profile. I can still do in-mail or whatever it's called. So I kept a level up from the free version, and that I would recommend. Just A, it looks more professional, and B, it allows you, because it's also valuable information, who looks at your profile, because that might be people who are interested in your services but are not quite ready yet to reach out.
Okay, it's interesting because we talk about like vanity metrics. But in some cases, if you are connected to a lot of people, does that signal to LinkedIn, like you've got that 9,000 connections, does that signal to LinkedIn that you're active and you're working it? And does that make them more likely to push your content out?
Actually, I don't know. I know the metrics on posting, because the thing is, if you don't post, you're not going anywhere, right? The one thing that the algorithm, maybe that answers your question right there. What the algorithm pushes is your content, be it articles and newsletter or posts. If you're not doing anything, you're not going anywhere, right? So if you're not putting content out there, then the algorithm or LinkedIn doesn't know what to serve people. It's Nina changed a comma in her about section is not going to put you out into people's feed, but me posting a post is going to put me into someone's feed. And I see a lot of people that I start working with where they're like, oh, I post all the time, and I go into their feed to see what it is, and it's like sharing stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but if you are going to share, you're going to have to share with a proper post why you shared. What is your takeaway? not just, oh, I like this, this was cool. Do an actual blurb, or it can be as simple as, this is a great course this woman is talking about here. I recommend it. I've worked with her. Or I love what they're talking about here. This has been my experience too, and I wanted to share it because it's really well said. It can be as simple as that, but people have no time. Even if people are doom scrolling, I don't want to have to figure out why the hell I'm looking at something. I want to be told why I'm looking at something so I can decide, in that all these split second decisions that we have every day, apparently a finite amount of, make it easy for people to decide whether they want to engage with you. And that goes for all of your content. Ask good engagement questions. And Jeanne, you've worked with us in our engagement group. If you don't have a call to action, people don't know how to engage with you. So have a call to action. It doesn't have to be salesy. It can be something where you ask them a question about the post that they just read. What did you think? What is your experience with this topic? People love to answer questions, and people innately, we're humans, we're wired for engagement, we're wired for conversation, right? So having a call to action on every single post is an absolute must.
Nina has a great group, and we'll tell you about that in a little while. But I wanted to ask you about, as far as content goes, since we were talking about it, is there an advantage or disadvantage to doing articles, newsletters, posts? I know you're a fan of video, so we'll talk about that, but I'm curious about the articles and the newsletter. And I know video does best in posts, but can you talk a little bit to the other ones as well?
Yeah, as much as I know. So articles are a thing of the past, where if you want to be held accountable for doing a consistent newsletter, which a lot of people do very successfully, I think that's a great way to go. So when you set up a newsletter on LinkedIn, you will be asked what your publishing frequency is. So you want to make sure that if you commit to it, you can actually uphold it. The beauty of a newsletter is that people can subscribe to it, and they can also, you can write a post. You can basically make your newsletter a post. And then when people comment on the post or on the newsletter, the comments will, and the likes will be in the same place. So you're getting the engagement and the bubbling up of, the more engagement, the more it will be served to other people, into other people's feeds. You can cross fertilize, so to speak. So newsletters, I know people who their only LinkedIn strategy is a weekly newsletter, and they do quite well with it, or do very well with it, actually, depending on how prolific of a writer they are and how good their content is. Newsletters, especially if your personality leans towards wanting to be a writer and not deal with images that much, or with video or lives, a newsletter is a great way to go. I think an article could be useful for one-offs. If you want to publish something and you want to keep it within the LinkedIn ecosystem, because if you're linking to your newsletter, you won't get punished for putting a link into your post because it doesn't lead outside of LinkedIn. You're keeping people within their own ecosystem. But the benefits that the newsletter has with that the comments live in both places, and the likes, that doesn't happen with a newsletter, with an article, I'm sorry. So that's a little bit different there. And then if you do repost, let's say, for instance, your blog, if you have one, as an article, make sure that you do it a couple of days later. If people are searching, it's clear to the web crawlers where the origin was, and that should always probably be your website rather than a LinkedIn article. So you want to put a good amount of time between publishing a blog and then publishing an article on LinkedIn if it's the same content.
That's good to know. We're all about using things multiple times, right?
Of
You just have to
course.
be around it.
Yeah.
So we know some people that do a live weekly show where they'll have a 10 or 15-minute live where they interview someone each week. How does that work out for most people?
That's, I think, is the best way to go. Now, if you say weekly and 15 minutes, that makes my ears perk up, because that's not what I would ever advise a client to do, because that's a podcasting tactic. And it's actually just something my business partner and I were butting heads over just yesterday. Lives are not podcasts. It's a different medium, right? And a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but I've seen people use one for the other, and that's fine. If you're doing a podcast and that's your primary, and you happen to just record it live on LinkedIn, fine, by all means, nothing wrong with that. And it's probably a very smart move since you're doing the work anyway. But if you wanted to do a live and the live is your primary, a live lives better if it is at least 20 minutes, if not a half an hour long. especially if it's a you talking head thing. If it's an interview thing, I think it should actually be even a little longer than that, just because it takes a moment for people to find you. Sometimes the algorithm will say, hey, here, Nina is live right now. So I always say like the first 10 minutes. And I think a live show, because when I set my clients up with a live show, we make it we treat it like a TV show, right? We even like the show, I'm co-hosting a show with a client of mine who's become a friend, and we do a show about art on LinkedIn. We now have a pre-roll video as if we were like a little trailer, and we're now looking for sponsors. So we're really setting it up like a real TV show. We're doing it once monthly because that's what we can manage with everything else in our lives. Ideal probably would be twice monthly. If you want to do like you alone on camera live, weekly is probably fine, but you probably want to commit to a half an hour show at least.
And you can you set those up as an event on LinkedIn?
Yeah, and that's how you do it. So you set it up as an event, and then you need a third-party streaming software to disseminate it. So LinkedIn does not allow for direct streaming like Facebook does, or Instagram. So you have to have that third-party vendor. But the beauty of it is if you have that third-party vendor, you can choose to simulcast to many different places. So like with my vendor, I have the least expensive package. It's StreamYard, and Restream, by the way, is also awesome. I've tried both of them. And you can with the package I have, I can simultaneously go to 2 more places. So I chose Instagram, which is the bane of my existence, and YouTube. And with YouTube, the beauty is now I have a playlist there, and I have all my lives I've ever done are in YouTube playlists and on the channel. And then my guests can each choose 2 as well. So if I have 2 guests and myself, and I use my 3 and they use all of their 2, we're simulcasting to 7 different places at the same time. And that just multiplies the outreach exponentially. And then, of course, I create micro content and I share it also with my guests. And so then there's life after the show. And if you have a show, I feel, and that's one of the other reasons why I don't have a show more often, is it just starts, I have so much content, I don't know what to do with it anymore.
Well, this has been so amazing and helpful. And I'm going to go look at my LinkedIn profile again. We'll check yours out first. Then I'm going to look at mine.
Okay, good. Yeah. So let me know what you think of mine. I went a little more poppy and a little more fresh. So to see what you think. Yeah.
I love that. Tell us, Nina, and our listeners how they can reach you if they are interested in learning more about what you do and how you might be able to help them on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. On LinkedIn. That's probably your best bet because you get to see me in action. So I do what I preach. I post 3 times a week. I post on the same days at the same time. I keep it very regular and consistent. And my profile, there's always room for improvement, obviously, but my profile, it's pretty much up there. So Nina Froriep, I'm the only one with last name like that. I don't have to worry about there being others. So I think that is a great place to get started. And then, of course, my company website, clockwiseproductions.com, is also a good place to go and snoop around a bit if you're curious.
This has been great, Nina. You are so inspiring. Kirsten said, now I got to go on my LinkedIn profile and see what's happening there. And I know that from being in one of your programs that you attract amazing people as well. So if you haven't checked out Nina's profile on LinkedIn and watched her and followed her content, I would highly recommend it. So Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a wealth of information, and we'll have details on how to reach out to you in our show notes below. So thank you again, Nina.
Of course. Thanks for having me again. I was very honored.
Thanks for listening to the 6-Figure Business Mastery Podcast. If you enjoyed listening to this episode and you are ready to leverage video marketing on all online platforms, or maybe even start your own video podcast, then you need to check out the Done For You and Done With You program at themarketingvaadvantage.com and take your business to the next level.